Welcome to Dynamic. This is Ben Burke, and I'm thrilled that you're joining a community of ambitious, driven leaders leveling up in their life by prioritizing personal development and practicing quantum consciousness. I hope that you have subscribed, rated, and reviewed this podcast. It would mean very much to me. This podcast is honest, impactful, and authentic, and based on real experiences from individuals just like you that have made the commitment to their mastery. Seeing what you have to say in the reviews is extremely helpful to me and to the other listeners so that they know what to expect as they join us. In today's episode, we'll be talking about, of course, that the home life supports the work life supports the home life, but truly that the home life must be solid in order for the work life to thrive, and that this is not an idea that goes in the other direction. We'll also be discussing the overflowing cup of energy at home, in your family life, in your friend life, in your social life, and how that directly leads to an overflowing abundance in your work, in your creations. And we're moving into a place where we're seeing this as very pragmatic. We'll also be talking about priorities, and specifically the idea of how to carry your priorities from home into your work life. Finally, we'll be looking at setting boundaries and being gentle with yourself, just as you would as a child. Finally, the free download today will be mantras on presence. So we'll be talking much about presence and presence energy in this podcast. And the free download will involve specific mantras for bringing more presence into your life. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say in the reviews. Again, I hope that you've subscribed, rated, and reviewed. Enjoy the show. Becoming present with family and friends happens when someone either comprehends the magnitude of the importance of this presence relative to their life from more of a macro view, and or experiences sustained joy or pleasure in their life from applying presence to their relationships with their loved ones, to their family, to their friends, to the people that they care about most. The problem is that our work lives, if we want to separate those ideas, can be overwhelming. It can be an overwhelming perspective to take that on in a very kind of ambitious way. The achievement of things, the output of the processes, can become the focus. And when this is so strongly brought into our awareness, simply being simple becomes more and more foreign to our experience. The solution is to tie a lot of these ideas together and see them not as separate activities, but to see them as the same activity in different contexts. And so I have a few different points here, a few different ideas representing the why and the how to become present with your loved ones. So presence, in the context we're talking about it here, has to do with basically being in the moment, being so in any one particular moment that you're not thinking about other things, you're not bringing forth emotions connected to any other ideas other than the thing that you're experiencing. It is being fully focused, fully contemplative, fully in your body in that moment. It is, in some sense, basically more fully living the experience that you are in. Not so much living in the decisions that you've made, the ideas of the things that happened in the past, and not so much thinking or feeling into the future, creating those ideas of what's to come. It's the idea of right now, complete nowness of the moment in that sense, and thinking about that as a gift that you are giving yourself, and a gift that you are providing to anyone that you are interacting with, and vice versa. An individual that is giving themselves presence is giving you presence in your kind of proximity as well, if you're interacting with them. So that's the idea of presence. And so the why and the how of it, basically this is trying to intellectualize something that we can really feel all the time when we're not really there, when we're zoning out, when we're thinking about other things, when we're with our children, when we're with our loved one, with our spouse, when we're with our family, when we're with our friends, but we're not really there. Our body's there, but our mind has basically decided that we're going to be steering some of the emotional energy, some of the mental energy into something that isn't right there. And this is lack of presence. This is kind of splitting yourself. And this is a leading contender for contribution to stress in your life. It's stretching yourself. It's moving yourself into two different situations. It's duality in a beautiful, beautiful, easy to experience form. And so as it relates to this idea of kind of like your work life and your home life, that's the paradigm that we're going to be working with this idea. So the first point is that your home life, which is your family, which is your friends, which is your creative endeavors, which is your pleasure-seeking activities that you don't label as work, that you don't label as what it is that you're doing on a more day-to-day basis. If you're not in a paradigm where these things are together, they're one thing, then we'll just go with the paradigm where they're somewhat separate. And so it's the idea that your home life supports your work life, and your work life supports your home life, much in different ways for different people. And there's no particular dogma to bring into this, just to say that if we are going to basically say that they are separate, then we are also going to say that there's an intention behind all of your activity, and that whatever that intention is behind all of your activity, ultimately they are both in some way supporting that. And because they're both supporting that in some way, they're both supporting each other. They're interrelated to each other. Yes, we're going to separate them, but they're also basically kind of the same thing. They're your endeavors that you're doing. The difference is that your home life must be solid for your work life to be solid. Your relationship with your closest friends, if they exist outside of your workplace, in your relationship with your health, your relationship with your creativity, your relationship with your family, your relationship with your spouse, your relationship with your children. These things must be, in some sense, we'll say solid. We'll say that they are fruitful, that they are positive, that they are things that you look forward to, that you are excited about, that you enjoy doing while you're doing it. They are basically the thing itself that you're doing with your family is the joy that you gain from it. You're not looking for an additional output or outcome from the time that you're putting in with your family. It's not that sort of paradigm. It's the idea that just being with your family, just being with your loved ones is so fulfilling, so exciting. It's extremely solid in your life. This must be the case in order for your work life to be solid. If you are in a position where you're managing other people and you do not have a solid work environment, look around your home life. If your work environment is not robust in terms of freely express, kind of the free expression of thought, the acceptance of others, it's super likely that your home life is reflective of that as well. The other side of that is your home life is not dependent upon the solidity, if we're going to use that kind of terminology, of your work life. So you can have a work life that is shaky, that from the outside looking in, you're doing this job, you're moving into this career, you're managing these people, you're shifting off, you're doing your own thing, you're going back into consulting, you're getting back into this particular art, this craft that you have. You could be kind of from the outside looking in all over the place in your career path, but your home life could be incredibly solid. And so from the outside looking in, it looks sporadic, it looks chaotic, it looks like there's a lack of direction. As one paradigm, it could also look very stagnant from the outside looking in. You could be in a position, whether you're running your own business, you're doing a startup, and maybe you find yourself, holy smokes, I'm almost 10 years into this startup, and it's not exactly where I thought it would be. And from the outside looking in, it's like, dang, You've been doing this a really long time. Where are the fruits? Where is your reward for this? And, it could look stagnant, but your home life, your love, in a sense, your family, your friends, those people that you're sharing your heart with more fully, perhaps, is extremely fruitful. And therefore, what you're deriving, that sense of fulfillment that many people derive from the work that they do, you're not getting it from work. You're getting it from home. So the work, in that sense, it's perfect. It's perfect for what you need. It's perfect for your life. It's perfect for your own journey. And there's not this sense of kind of competitiveness. There's not this sense of needing to have something in addition to the thing that you're doing from the work, in a very direct sense, in terms of validating yourself, that sort of thing. The key is to see the work life as an extension of the home life. The home, the heart, the work, the expression, the outreach, that is the extension. And, see them as separate is fine, but start seeing them as more of a unified expression, a unified sense of your own self. And that idea of your home life being your core, being your foundation, is really important when it comes to applying presence. Because if you have the perspective that your work life is where you are really getting your excitement from, and really is where your creative energy is being poured into, and where you're feeling the happiest, that's totally fine. There's no judgment around that. In that belief system, in that experience, it's going to be way harder for you to apply presence, to become present with family, with friends, if you don't actually want to do it. And if you don't actually want to do it, then there's no reason for you to even be listening to this, right? So, but if it's something that's really clear that you want to do it, it's to look at first how you perceive your work life and your home life. So that's the first point. The second point would be getting into the idea of kind of an overflowing cup. So if we're in this paradigm where the home life is my foundation, the home life is kind of central, then kind of the next analogy can be around this overflowing cup. And an overflowing cup at home, meaning that you gain energy, you gain wisdom, you gain experience, you are getting. There is a give and a take, but you are getting. You are not, in a sense, depleting yourself when you're with your children, depleting yourself when you're with your friends. If you are, then that's something to look at. But it's to take the perspective and to really manifest for yourself the idea that when you are home, when you are with friends and family, you are experiencing an overflowing cup. And when this happens, when your energy is basically being filled up, when your energy cup is being filled up, then this leads very directly to more of an overflowing abundance at work. See this endeavor towards solidifying your home life as pragmatic for the work, for the extension. See this as important and real and worthy of your creative energy. Think about how much creative energy you put into your work. Think about how much of your mental capacities you put into your work. Perhaps think about how many freaking books you've read about how to be a better boss, about how to manage people better, about marketing strategy, about supply chain strategies, about communication, about all these different things, the podcasts that you listen to, all these ideas. How much of that energy could you kind of break off, or how much more energy could you devote into your family, into your friends, into your social structure, into yourself? In that sense, your health is yourself. Presence is the tapping in to this creative energy. Creative energy is not just art. It's also communication, just pure present communication with another person. Presence is the idea that you are focused on right now. Nothing else is there. You're in the zone. You're not zoning out. You are in the zone. Nothing is distracting to you, because in that moment, in this moment of clarity, This thing is the most important thing. It is the only thing. You're not splitting yourself thinking about other things. You're not attributing emotional energy into things that have nothing to do with right now. And when you do that, you clear yourself out and you open yourself up for authentic heart-based communication, for authentic kind of connection, for amazing, amazing experiences with your spouse. If you have a significant other, or if you have a very close friend, you can achieve this. And if you have a mother or father, if you have a child, you can achieve these levels of kind of clairvoyance, these levels of telepathy, if you want to call it this, of knowing what the other person is going to say before they say it, of feeling what the other person is feeling as they're feeling it or before they're feeling it. This is where, when you're in the presence of others, these relationships blossom. Fun happens. Things are lighter. Everyone's cup is filled up. Nobody's cup is depleted. Thinking about this as kind of the cup, it's filling you up. It is duly filling you up, and you are filling it up. You are the one that is filling up your family's cup. That idea that you are taking the ownership of it, that is not necessary. It's a very egotistical, not in a negative sense, it's just an egotistical thing to think. The cup fills itself up. The energy is unlimited that you have to do what you want to do. But you have to get present. You have to find presence. And when you do that, you're clear. You're zoned in. You're just light, you're fun, it's exciting. There isn't an outcome that you're looking to get. You're not spending time talking about what the next thing it is you're going to do in the next weekend. You're just kind of like there. The cups are filled because of presence energy, not because of your effort. Okay, that is a foundational change in how we think about creating a family life or allowing a family life to exist and support the work life. So that's the second idea. The third idea is prioritization with respect to bringing presence into your life with your loved ones. Priorities in your life should be or could be with you all the time. I've worked with people that are very priority-focused people, and they prioritize things in a very compartmentalized way. And that works just fine, but kind of a more holistic way to look at this is what is a priority for you at home is also a top priority for you while you're working on your craft, while you're at work. Is that true or is that not true? Do your priorities, and let's define that, the things that are most important to you in your life, do the things that are most important to you in your life change depending on if you're sitting on your couch at home with your family, or if you're in a meeting at work? Do they change? Ideally, they shouldn't change. The context shouldn't dictate to you what is important to you. If they do, then there's an opportunity for you to strengthen your commitment to your priorities or realign your priorities because they're not right. They're not actually expressing themselves in your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors. If you go to work and you become a different person, you will have different priorities. Now, this is, in a sense, different than playing a role and jumping into a character that you enjoy playing. It's more so into your identity. If you begin to create a character at work, which is exciting for you to play, is authentic for you to play, it might be simply an exaggerated version of you, of your feelings, of your essence. That's totally fine. But the idea is if you become so identified with that avatar of an avatar, then your priorities are going to be different because you're identifying with a different person in that sense. So bringing your priorities with you, blending these kind of two different worlds, or these multiple worlds, multidimensional worlds, and carrying these with you, that's going to be kind of more of a rock for you. And so when you're clear, we use whiteboards. when we're needing to kind of reprioritize things. And then, we're basically writing them down with ink on paper. And that's what we use. That's what Katie and I use. Katie, my partner, and I use. We very much like write things down. We move into more solidified priorities. And it's helpful for many people to bring those priorities into their work life so that they don't forget. It's just really freaking easy to forget who you are when you're working so hard, when you're so ambitious, when you're so excited about achievement, which are all great things to learn on this earth. They're awesome things. But this is also some of the reasoning why it is even a discussion why and how to be present with your loved ones, is because we're splitting ourselves and we're putting our identities into different characters. So the idea is to have a little bit of a rock, have a little bit of a foundation through your priorities. So get clear with yourself on what's important to you. Make a priority list. I'm not going to go through how to do that, but basically, like, the idea would be make a priority list. Do you have a list of the things that are most important in your life? No? Okay, that's totally fine. And you might trust yourself in any context, in any situation, to always be cognizant of the top priorities in your life. I personally don't. I personally would much prefer to get my hands in those priorities and be aware when a priority changes, because priorities do change. And it's not so much to say that I want to lock myself into a particular dogma around priorities. It's more or less saying I want to prioritize prioritization in my life and make that something that's always within my awareness. So that was the third point. The fourth idea here would be to set some boundaries and be gentle with yourself as you would a child. I had worked with a client who was a CPA that, among some of the things we were working on, basically was this idea of presence. Very, very busy person, self-described, very busy, and could not stop checking emails on his phone while at home. Even during like movie nights, even during intimacy, not sexual intimacy, but kind of like, the revving of the engines. And it's just not cool. Not cool kind of dynamic going on in the home where he wasn't able to shut it off. He wanted to get present. He had a desire to get present, and he wasn't able to do it. He was not relaxing, and he was not seeing himself as being supported by his wife, and this was part of the dynamic, ultimately because he did not see himself as supporting her. This affected him, and it affected him in a lot of different ways, but one of the ways was he was overworking himself to overcompensate for this lack of ease that he was experiencing at home. That was just kind of like being carried with him. So he wasn't present at home, which means he wasn't relaxing, which he wasn't experiencing in the way that he has set up his life, that heart-based, vulnerable connection, that, that emotional release and being seen by another person. He wasn't doing these things. So there was like all of this bottled up emotional energy because there wasn't the presence being gifted into the relationship that would fill up anybody's cup, either of their cups or both of their cups. And as a result of that, the only de facto thing that he really knew how to do in terms of his training or his programming was to just keep working hard, keep seeing the achievement, keep feeling and experiencing doing good in work and advancing in work. And, the solution to this was basically a change in perspective and a change in prioritization. And in some sense, him getting really disciplined, for lack of a better word, with himself around boundaries. And this boundary setting kind of was a catalyst, but then it was the second point, which is being brought here, which is to be gentle with yourself. So just as you would be gentle with a child, as you set boundaries and you set guidelines and you try to, kind of course correct along the way, you want your child to be able to make some mistakes and learn from them, but you don't want them to fall off a cliff and die, right? Like, it's that sort of like setting boundaries and being gentle. It's being really clear about what you want to do when you program a child. And I don't mean that objectively, but like that's what parents are trying not to do, but are basically all doing, is programming a child. And so being present is the outcome of the mental, emotional state of the beingness that you are. It's not something that just happens for the most part with the audience that is listening here. It's not something that just happens in the Western business kind of like culture. You're likely going to need to retrain yourself or reprogram yourself. And the best way to do that for a lot of people is to treat themselves with the love and the care that they would treat a small child. Think about a 5-year-old girl who's learning so much. This is like a freaking whole thing in this world. There's so many different things. I'm feeling so many emotions, dealing with all these adults who have no connection to their emotions. I'm dreaming all this crazy stuff. What is going on? It's very real for me. Everybody else is telling me it's crazy. There's just so much going on, and I'm also trying to learn the rules that like are available to teach me where to walk and where to go and how to do these things. There's just like so much going on. That's you. That's me. That's us. That's learning all these things. We are just an adult child with different things that we're learning. And so treating ourselves like a child, like with care, with love, with compassion, setting boundaries, it's very important. And so this is related very directly to bringing presence into your loved one's life, because part of it is the nurturing that you provide to a child, the nurturing that you provide to yourself. These are the same thing. And ultimately, your presence is very much about a nurturing energy. It's about a mothering or a fathering energy. And regardless if it is your own mother or father you're talking about, or your children, or your spouse or your friends, regardless, it's the same feeling of being the mother or being the father and having your child come to you with a problem or with a story. And whatever it is, you're meeting them exactly where they're at. And you're not bringing in a bunch of other ideas, a bunch of other thoughts, a bunch of other feelings into the conversation, into the interaction. You wouldn't do that. You know that would be very confusing and not very respectful to that child. And so it's the same thing. Look at yourself that way, start to interact with those dynamics in that way. So kind of the tool here is to reprioritize presence. Intellectually understand it. Yes, of course, that's part of this process. See it though. If you look around and find a benchmark, see it in the successful / happy people that are all around you. Maybe they're not all around you. Maybe there's just a few of them, but you have at least one. You have at least one person that you have some degree of success attributed to their life from the outside looking in, and that's totally fine. You're not judging. It's just that's the way you perceive it. Just accept it. And you see them as happy. Watch how much they care about their families and their friends, and ask them, how do they find time for it? How do they prioritize it? And watch how they do this no matter what. Watch how this is a foundational part, an extension of their life. It's the core of their life. The idea is to see yourself where you are right now and love yourself for the journey that you have been on and that you are on. That's kind of the main tool. And the other more kind of tactical tool would be, outside of these ideas to integrate and to start embodying, would be to start to interact with your subconscious. I'm not going to go into the subconscious into any depth in this video, but just moving into mantras, moving into speaking your voice, moving into saying the things that you want to create for yourself as a means of reprogramming your subconscious behavior, the things that you do out of a habitual nature, the things that you aren't even aware of, that you say, that you do, that you think, that you feel, that are just kind of habit. And this subconscious behavior expresses itself in many, many ways as lack of presence. And so the usage of mantras is a wonderful tool to basically reprogram some of these fundamental beliefs, these fundamental ideas relative to how you prioritize presence. The free download that we have for this episode is just that. It is Mantras for Presence. You can go to the description and click the link and get that free download. It's just some suggested mantras that may or may not be helpful. I think that they will be, relative to generally what I understand to be some of the critical barriers in bringing more presence into your life. Thank you so much for listening. Before you jump off this episode screen, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. I put out a new episode 5 days per week. If you like what you're hearing, please tap that 5-star rating and leave a review to let me know how you are applying some of these ideas. Check out the links in the description for more information, and don't forget to grab your free download. Thanks again for listening, and remember that absolutely everything that you desire is within your reach. Talk to you soon.